I just wanted to see if I could do it, man. I wanted to see if I could play all the instruments, engineer the whole thing, produce the whole thing. I mean, I've engineered and produced full records, of course, and mixed full records, but nothing I did entirely on my own. And so, writing all the lyrics and just, conceptualizing the whole thing. And so there really wasn't any sort of ticking clock or anything like that. It was just sort of the universe's clock was like, hey, he should do this.
What's up, everybody? It's Keefy at ghostcultmag.com. I am super excited to talk to Eric Bass of Shinedown today. How are you doing?
Man, I'm so good. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for being here. And thank you for this amazing solo record. I have so many thoughts. I Had a Name is coming out later this month as we record this today at the
Yep.
beginning of February. First and foremost, it is a really treacherous time early in the year, considering the fires and everything else. I hope all
Mm.
your friends, family, collaborators, the rest of the world, I hope everybody's okay with you and good with you.
Yeah, yeah, man. I checked on all my West Coast friends as that stuff was unfolding, and all of my people made it out. Which is great. It's very tragic. I'm here on the East Coast, so I have a lot of friends up in North Carolina that have been, dealing with the flooding and that tragedy up there as well. So, prayers for everyone, and trying to help out as I can with the people in my group. So. Seriously though, it's a great thought, man. Like, it's kind of you're talking about music stuff and realizing that there are people dealing with those sorts of things is very humbling. So, prayers for those people for sure.
Yeah, right on. I have many friends in the Carolinas and collaborators, and I live in Northern California. I'm only a few years transplanted here, but I was like,
Okay.
fires in the winter. It's not summertime. What's happening? There's no orange in the sky. I don't know what's going on, but
Yeah.
luckily I'm in San Francisco proper,
Okay.
and we haven't been horribly affected too bad in the time I've been here. Of course, I'm always nervous about a rumble or an earthquake.
Sure.
Had a few of
That's a very disconcerting feeling. I've been through a few
a
out there.
few, yeah,
So
like
yeah.
including like during a work Zoom and like,
Mm,
what's going on? I'll be right back.
yeah.
Run. But I am so excited about this record, and I'm so excited to talk to you about it. First, and like right off the bat, I took a bunch of notes. I listened to this thing a bunch of times. Shout out to Becky and the PR team for connecting us and giving
Yeah.
me the promo early. It's a privilege to listen to it,
Thank
and
you.
yeah, and just right off the bat, like now, what you've been making music all your life. You've been in the band and Shinedown almost 20 years. Like, why is now a good time for a solo record? You've produced and written and collaborated on so much music, but now this is your own with your own stamp on it.
Yeah. Man, there was no no alarm bell was rung or anything like that. The record's actually been done for quite a few years, believe it or not. I finished mixing it before we started writing Planet Zero. So, it's been finished for a while. It was actually something that came to me from the universe, from God, from whatever. I know that might sound ridiculous to people who've never had any experience like that, but I was sitting in a hotel room in Italy on the attention record cycle, and I just got done with a workout, and this voice that's not mine spoke to me and said, hey, you might want to write this down. And I started writing down this story idea for a graphic novel, which is the genesis of this record. What I wrote down actually ended up being the prequel for this record, for this story that I'm telling now. And I started writing this graphic novel. I started writing this story and with these characters, and somewhere along the line, this idea of putting some of the snapshots from the story to music kind of popped in my head during that attention touring cycle. And I started laying down a couple of ideas in hotel rooms and dressing rooms and that kind of thing, just sort of sketches for what would be the record. And I remember going to Brent at the time, like, "Hey man, are you in a place where you want to start writing a Shinedown record at all? Because I have these musical ideas. They're a little different, some of them, but we always like different in our camp, as long as we think it's good." And he said, "Absolutely not. I'm not ready at all." And I said, "Well, look, I've got this idea, and I'm going to pursue that." And we're very respectful of each other in the band like that. We always want our best material, our best stuff to go to our band, and we don't have to necessarily ask each other permission, but we just love each other, and that's what we do. So I threw that idea out there. He threw it back at me. I'm like, cool, I'm gonna go make this record. And he's like, great, go make this record. And I just wanted to see if I could do it, man. I wanted to see if I could play all the instruments, engineer the whole thing, produce the whole thing. I mean, I've engineered and produced full records, of course, and mixed full records, but nothing that I did entirely on my own. And so, writing all the lyrics and just, conceptualizing the whole thing. And so there really wasn't any sort of ticking clock or anything like that. It was just sort of the universe's clock was like, hey, you should do this, you should do this thing. And the interesting thing about that too is that I didn't release it right away, and wasn't sure if I was ever going to release it. And that was also on the universe's time as well. And here we sit, a few years after it was finished, and finally, finally I'm putting it out, which is an interesting time considering there's Shinedown music coming out simultaneously. But again, I don't I try not to I turn a lot of things over to God into the universe, and just hey, this is how it's supposed to be. This is the time right now. So
Right on. Well, when inspiration strikes, you hits, or you gotta strike when the iron is hot, right? Creatively.
for sure.
You don't know
Yep.
what you're gonna get.
Yep.
One of my personal musical collaborators always says the music tells you what to do. It plays you.
Yeah,
You don't
man.
play it, it plays you. He's
No,
that.
that's no, dude. I'm like that, man. I'm with him on
Yeah,
that, dude.
I
It's
could
it's
tell.
you grab these things as they float by you, and look, I think anybody who's done this long enough, at a high level realizes that that's the case. That you're not driving the car, you're sitting in the car, but you're not driving it. And as these things pass by, you grab a hold of them, and because Rick Rubin had a great point. He said that when you get an idea like this, that's the universe telling you that it's ready. It wants to be born, and if you don't grab it, somebody else is going to. And honestly, that is one of the things that just a little side note, that's one of the things that caused me to release this record, was the fact that I've been sitting on it and sitting on it. And Josh Sturm, who some people may know, is Lacey Sturm, her husband, he fills in our band when I'm like, when I had COVID, he came out and played bass. When Zach was what Zach's wife was having a baby, he went and did a European tour with us playing guitar. So we're really close with Josh, and Josh sent me I'd sent him, he'd heard the record practically when it was finished. He's one of the first people I ever sent it to. So he'd had it for a few years. And then he sends me this song on Apple Music or Spotify. And I believe it was a all girl K-pop group, which is funny. But he's like, man, this song sounds note for note like your song New Graves off of your record. And like it caused me to freeze for a second, because I'm like, that's the universe. Like I never this thing wanted to be born, and I haven't put it out. And now he's sending me this thing. He's like, hey, I think this whatever this new song is sounds just like the song you wrote, 5 years ago or 3 years ago or whenever it was. And so that caused a panic in me. I actually never listened to the song he sent me. I was like, I don't want to hear it because it'll get in my head. But that was sort of a thing that jump started me. It's like, hey, what are you sitting on this thing for? It's time to put it out there. This is again, to Rick Rubin's point, it's like maybe the universe was ready for whatever that thing is that he thinks is in the soup of my song and their song. It was time for that to go out to the world, and maybe they got to it before I did, right? So that gave me a nudge to put this thing out for sure.
Right on. To sidebar to your sidebar, I suspect, having heard this record, that you love the Beatles. You probably do.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if you've ever heard this story. A dear friend of mine bought me a gift a while back that was like a giant encyclopedia, dictionary, unabridged, thick size thing that's like every Paul McCartney song ever. So Beatles,
Wow.
solo, Wings. And there's a story in there about Yesterday, right? It's like the most covered song of all time.
Hmm.
It's a classic. The minute you hear it, you know it, right?
Yep.
And he dreamed it. He woke up from a night's sleep and had the melody in his head.
Hmm.
And then he went to everyone for weeks, like, do you know this song? And he would sing it to them, like, I've never
Yeah.
heard that before. What are you talking about? He's like, I must have wrote it in my dreams.
Yeah.
And he sat, and then finally he was like, okay, no one I know has heard this melody. I must have made it up in my subconscious. And then he wrote
Yeah.
it. And it's like,
Yeah.
iconic, obviously, like a lot of his stuff. But
Dude, that
yeah,
stuff happens, man. It really does. Like I've come out of a dead sleep before with lyrics. I've come out of a dead sleep with melodies. That not to that level, probably, but not to Paul McCartney's level, not to the level of Yesterday, but it definitely happens. And the interesting thing is, if you don't seize that moment, like if I don't write that thing down right then, or if I don't pick up something to record that idea that I have at that moment, it's gone. I'll forget it. And it happens every time. It's very rare that I can remember something like that later. So, that is absolutely you being given a gift, and you better do something with it right now, or it's going on to somebody else.
Right on. There's also a great dream interpretation book called Lucid Dreaming that draws a lot from like Jungian psychology and Freud
Mm,
too. So you want to get both sides of that coin,
yeah.
get the religion and the philosophy. If you want to
Yeah,
meld the two, it's fun stuff.
I dig Jung a lot.
Yeah.
I've got some of my favorite quotes that I hold myself to and that I pass on to others are from him. So,
There you go. And I suspect they
yep,
played a part in this record. And so I
yep,
love that you mentioned the graphic novels and a concept story and a prequel. I'm
hmm
not just a music nerd, I'm also a huge comic book nerd. So I
oh,
hope that
great,
this thing, I know that this is like a concept record. And I don't know how much you want to divulge, but
sure,
I
yeah,
definitely, between the listening to the music and trying to jot down thoughts and feelings about the record and the
hmm
lyrics, and the video for Azalea in particular is
yeah.
like very futuristic
Yeah.
dystopian thing. Talk a little bit about the concept if you don't mind sharing it.
Yeah, I mean the concept of the story. I can try to wrap this. It's very detailed, so it's like trying to. And I'm not comparing myself to Tolkien or anything, but it's kind of trying to wrap the Lord of the Rings up into a 3 minute synopsis, you know. Uh, but basically, we live in a world where that so the darkness on this world that we're in is it manifests itself. So like all misdeeds, murders, bad thoughts, negativity, whatever it is, actually will formulate, will actually go up into the atmosphere and then come back down as this element called the dreg, and it 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 sits on the land, let's say. And what will happen with the dreg is it will coalesce in itself into sort of a liquid smog type thing that can be controlled by these beings called dreg wielders. And so in ancient history on my world, there were these three kings, and they needed to combat the dreg and the dreg wielders. And they had this group of warriors called the Sin Vug, and they used this element called mirth, and they could combat the dreg, but they couldn't make the dreg go away. It just stayed. So the kings created these beings called the Dark Eaters, and the Dark Eaters could not only battle the dreg wielders or help battle the dreg wielders, but they could actually filter the dreg out and make it disappear. Long story short, eventually the kings of these worlds over generations and generations and generations, millennia really, become corrupt. Of course, as things happen, they became more obsessed with themselves, with very self-centered, not worried about the people. And so this gang leader named Devarin comes along, and he was a leader of a street gang, and he sort of starts this revolution amongst the people. Very, very communist revolution, very Iranian revolution in a lot of ways. But he convinces the people to rise up against the kings, and so the people rise up, kill the three kings of this world and their families. And Devarin is there, and he's promised that he's going to that they're going to put a democratic society in place. Well, as history tells us, that it doesn't usually work out well. Devarin basically becomes the leader of this world, the despot of this world, and he kills all of the Sinvug, and he kills all of the Dark Eaters. At least he thinks he does, but there's one Dark Eater left, and that sort of picks up our story where I am. That's kind of the prequel thing, and basically what we do is we now follow Azalea, who's the last of the Sinvug. She's the last one left, and we follow her, and we follow Jeff, who is the last Dark Eater. And it's kind of weird to say like Jeff, like why Jeff? Well, you have to read the story to figure that out. And then these kids that live in a prison camp. These kids are imprisoned. Basically, all of the children. Devarin has all the children sent to his education camp. And parents don't really have a choice. Everyone's mind controlled on this world. That's the song "Mind Control." But they send their kids there thinking they're all going to get an education. And basically, what he does is he separates the kids into groups. And one group is okay, I like your parents' political leaning. I like who your family is. You're all going to get a proper education. You're going to become members of the state and of the military. And all of you over here, your parents don't like me. I don't like them. Or you've done something I don't like. You're all going to be separated out, and you just go to a work camp for the rest of your life, like very North Korean work camp. And so basically, in our story and our record, we follow those kids. We follow Azalea. We follow Devarin, our bad guy, amongst a bunch of other characters as well. And basically, these kids trying to fight back for their future, that their potential future was great at one point, and now it's not. So they're fighting back for their world, and Azalea is finding her faith again. and when she's become an assassin, she was this religious monk that was also a warrior, and she threw all of that off. She saw her mother get murdered, and has vowed revenge, and so it's a really cool story, man. And I was able to grab snapshots of this much larger story, much longer story, and put some of those pictures into songs, and do it in a way that I thought was cool and not cheesy. So
Absolutely not cheesy. Thank you for unpacking all of that.
yeah.
And I love, so much of the lore and the world building. Like you said, listen, it's not, listen, concept records are my jam. And,
Yeah.
like I said, I got notes of like late Beatles in there,
Mm,
Pink Floyd, The Wall,
yeah.
obviously, and Dark Side of the Moon, and, other things adjacent, and, really like all kinds of flavors and emotions. I love the line. There's a lot of great lyrics on the record, but I love the line like "You can go to hell, but you can't go home." Right?
Yeah.
Oh my
Yep.
gosh, like that's gonna just a dagger for a lot of people right in the chest.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so this is the interesting thing about the record is that I wrote, probably the most shocking thing for me about this record is that I wrote this record about these characters, and it was very easy to write. Meaning, nothing's look, songs aren't easy, but as songs go, it flowed pretty effortlessly. And usually when you're writing lyrics that flow pretty effortlessly, it's means it's very honest, And I thought that was kind of odd that I'm writing these songs about fictional characters, but they're flowing out of me in a certain way that I didn't expect they would. I figured I would have to maybe dig a little bit more for it. But what I realized after the fact is that I'd probably written the most autobiographical record that I've ever written through these characters. And I'd put like the Devarin character being, representing the darkness and the confusion and all of these things that have taken over this world is actually an analog for my depression and the neurodivergence and these problems, this thing that I had that kind of kicked me in the head as I got into high school age, from this kid where I used to be. I didn't really feel it that much then when I was younger, and writing about there's a character named Milk, and that's his nickname in the story, and he's a 12-year-old kid who's living in the prison camp, and we're going to follow him as well in the story, but you know, he keeps harkening back to this childhood that he can't remember. He went to this camp when he was like 6, and he's 12 now, 12 or 13, and he keeps trying to remember what his name is. That thus I had a name. He doesn't remember a lot, but he remembers this happiness that he had, but he doesn't know where it went. And so all of or Azalea with her faith, trying to find her way. She threw off all of this stuff that she had been taught when she was a kid, and now she will, and she throughout our story very slowly and reluctantly, starts to find her way back to these core values and beliefs that help her through our story. These are things that I've lived, and so it was really, that's why it was so easy to write. That's why it was so honest. And you take a lyric like, you can go to hell, but you can't go home. That whole song is about these kids in this camp, and the fact that there's in our story there's a wall that they all hang out around in the prison yard, and on the wall it's a list of things you can do and things you can't do, and the guards kind of write these rules, and some of the kids will write them to some of the some of those kids that live on the other side, that are in command and in control, will come over and write some of these things down as well. And it's you can eat shit and die, you can go to hell, you can go fuck yourself, you can do all these things, but the only thing you can't do is go home. You can never go home. You're here forever. You're never going home. And I think a lot of us feel like that sometimes. I mean, it was pretty cathartic to wrap up a lot of mental health things into unintentionally wrap up a lot of my mental health into this record, and then be able to lyrically present it in a way that I think other people can see themselves in it, and that can hopefully help people, man. That's what I love to do.
Right on. I share a lot of those same issues with you, and I think
Yeah.
that's saying for you to put it in that context so strongly after the last few Shinedown records, which are also was a bit of a personal journey for you
Yeah.
and the rest of the band, very heavy. But so thanks for
Yeah.
sharing.
Sure.
I had to definitely do like an oral double take on some of the stuff here because like obviously people know you from your bass playing and piano and
Hmm.
producing and
Yeah.
composing. Didn't know you also played drums like a
Yeah.
master, and the vocals on here are sensational. Like I don't know if people are really familiar with you like as a lead vocalist, and also all the harmonies. I
Hmm.
didn't know it was just you. I had to go back and look at the
Yeah.
notes, and I
Yeah.
was the press release, and I was like, oh, it's all Eric. Like
Yeah.
I
Other
couldn't
than
believe it
yeah,
actually.
some of the kids' voices are my nieces and nephews because I tried to make myself sound like a kid. It just ended up sounding like South Park. So so I brought them in. I left my stuff in there, but they're in there with me, of course, and they get featured in that. I appreciate that, man. Yeah. Finding my voice was interesting. I'm so used to being a background singer. You know, in a songwriting session, I'm singing a lot. You know, Brent and I are bouncing ideas back and back and forth off of each other, and but the interesting thing about being a vocalist is a lot of people think that it's about singing, and it's never really about singing. It's about emoting. It's about getting an emotion across. That's the biggest misconception. And when people say that person's such a great singer, what they really are, I think what they really mean is that person's making me feel something. Because you can have people that are great that know how to properly sing, but maybe they don't deliver it in a way that moves you at all. You know, Tom Petty, who's one of my, it took me a long time to come to Tom Petty, but once I did, I was like, wow, man, what a great songwriter and what a great storyteller and what a great singer. But he can't really sing, man. You know, he's like, but he's emoting and he's getting this, you know, he's telling you a story and he's delivering it in such a way that you feel it's viscerally real. And you know, I think we get the same thing with you know, with a Bob Dylan or somebody like that. And so I'm by no means putting myself in that category, but I did learn that, and I had to learn. You know, I guess I already knew these things, but I guess I had to apply. That's a better way of putting it. I had to apply that to vocals. I'd sing through these things. I'd listen back and be like, "Ah, it just feels wooden. You know, it doesn't feel good." And oh yeah, man, you got to really work on your delivery. You got to feel this. You have to, and so I'm really proud of the way that it came out. You know, did it come out the way that I really wish it were? Probably not, but I appreciate the compliments, man. Thank you. Yeah, and so that you know that was the thing. Is really working more on the emotional delivery of what I was doing. A great friend of mine named Jay Clifford, who I think is a great songwriter, and he's a composer and arranger. He's got some solo records out. He was also the singer in a band called Jump Little Children back in the '90s and 2000s here on the East Coast. But he said you have to think more about what you're saying than what you're singing, and I was that stuck with me. And I think that the really great performances that I did get on this record came across when I was thinking about what I was saying, like what am I trying to get across? I'm trying to tell you this story, and so I'd stop thinking about the notes and I'd start thinking about the words. To the drum point, the drums are interesting on this. I like to say that I performed the drums and not played the drums on the record because I actually set the drums up on stands. So I had the kick drum here, snare drum, tom, and I played with my hands. I played the whole thing like this, and then went back and overdubbed cymbals and hats and that sort of thing. Because for a lot of that double bass stuff, man, my feet won't do that, right? But I wanted to perform this record. Like I didn't want it to just be, you know, computer drums and whatnot. I mean, that's how I wrote a lot of the stuff, but I wanted to perform the parts that I had written. So it took a week and a half to record the drums, and they're all set up on stands. I have video of it. I'm gonna put it out at some point, of me in there just the double bass here, you know, doing this stuff. And uh but I wouldn't want to disparage drummers by saying that that I am a drummer. I play drums in marching band. That's how I got those chops, right? My hands are great. I got chops all day long with my hands. It's and some of the slower songs like All Good Children, like that is more played. Like I can sit down on a drum kit and play slower stuff, but when it comes to the fast stuff, I had to do it all with my hands. But that just came from wanting to put my DNA into every part of this record. You know, I didn't want it to feel contrived or maybe like a bedroom metal record or something, you know.
I got you. That's you know what? It's all you,
Mm.
and that's how records used to get made. I don't know if people remember, like
Yeah.
in the '70s, it was like one snare, one snare hit, one snare
Yeah.
hit, one snare hit, cut.
Yeah.
Now toms, and like that's how records used to get made. And
Yeah.
you know, like people don't know that now because
A lot
we're
of people don't, man. I heard something interesting recently is that Every Breath You Take by the Police, the kick drum is a drum machine. I never knew that. Like I thought that was all Stuart Copeland in there playing. It kind of makes Stuart Copeland a little salty about the song, but like they started with this kick drum pattern. That's what they wrote the song to, so they just left it in there. And then Copeland went back in and just played the snare over top of it and overdubbed hi-hats and cymbals. And that's that, people would be really surprised sometimes, I think, if they really knew how the sausage was made. But that the thing is the beautiful thing about it is if you do your job right, people don't think about it. Like I don't. It doesn't matter to me that it's an electronic kick drum on every breath you take. I love that song, and
Oh,
it's nice
so
to
good.
you know and so and by the way, I'm not disparaging bedroom metal with what I said earlier. Like there's some of I love, like there's a lot of that stuff that I love, and because here's the thing: if you do it right and you make me feel an emotion, I don't care how it was made. I don't care how it was done. It doesn't matter to me. So
Well, right on. Oh, by the way, there's some bangers on this record. There's some absolute raging metal songs on here. There's, like you
yeah,
said, all Good Children is very, gentle till the end.
yeah,
There's some very subtle, light moments all around,
mhm,
musically, composition, your voice, and then there's rage, and I like Mind Control, like you mentioned, and even
yeah.
some of the later songs. Yeah, I mean, there's so many good things on here. Like, I like that you ran the gamut, not just trying to tell the story with the actual book, right, the narrative, but
Mhm.
if I would let my musical theater nerd shine a little too and say
Do it.
the book, but
Yeah.
actually, like, the music also has like a real nice, whole journey emotionally, which is cool.
Yeah, man. I early on in the process, I was a little bit worried that I was getting too all over the map with things. And that's just the producer in me, like I'm like, is it getting a little too, am I going to lose people? And then I stopped myself and I said, hey, like, yeah, man, that's the kind of thing you need to think about when you're making a Shinedown record or when you're making another record for another band, is kind of making something that's easily is tangible for people and easy to grab a hold of. You're doing this record for a different reason. You're doing something that just makes you creatively tick. So let's stop worrying about that. And one of the things that brought me to that place was I was just had my iTunes playing in here. I'm old school. I had iTunes playing. I still buy records on iTunes. I had my iTunes playing in the background, and uh, so Faith No More came on. And I just started thinking about Mike Patton, and I was like, man, that dude just does what he wants to do, whether it's Tomahawk or Faith No More or Mr. Bungle or whatever it is, or Broadway, right? He just does whatever he wants to do, and stylistically lets the listener come to him instead of the other way around. And again, not that I'm Mike Patton, I'm not comparing myself to him vocally. I'm just comparing my thought process to that, and that sort of broke down those walls for me. I was just like, just make something that makes you tick, man. Like if it goes from metal 1 second to kind of hip hop the next second, and or R&B the next second, and then back to metal, and then to some punk feel, and just do what makes you happy, and so I'm inspired by so many different things, and I think that's just what it came from, is from that. And again, it was very freeing, man, to like not have to worry about that. I didn't realize how much time and energy I spend making records thinking about what the parameters are, and even though I didn't realize how I still thought that way. Yeah, because look, in Shinedown we make records, we do kind of explore some different spaces and try some different things here and there. And so I always feel like I've got a pretty freewheeling spirit when it comes to making music and making records, but I still didn't realize how much I kind of keep myself at home until I started making this record. And I was like, oh man, I can do anything. Like I don't have to worry about anything. Like I can, whatever, sky's the limit, whatever you want to do. And that's where a lot of the orchestral arrangements came from. And there's mandolin on the record, and there's whatever I felt like at the time, whatever I thought would be a cool moment, I just did. And I'm pretty pleased with that side of it for sure.
Amazing. Yeah, big Patton fan, huge hero to me. And as much as I love my vinyl and CDs and streaming, this guy right here is forever. I
Yeah.
still have one. Yeah, you see fingerprints all over it because I'm like
Yeah.
in there playing this thing and hooking it up to my on a aux cable to
And
stuff.
those
Yeah,
things sound better too. I don't know
for
if you've
sure.
noticed, if you've ever noticed that, like the
Yeah.
whatever the amps are, the preamp in it, or whatever the amp is that's sending the sound to the earphones, has a different it's like this, it's much better compression or something. It just sounds really good.
Yeah, it
So
was considering it's a 20-year-old device
yeah.
almost. Good times. Just as we wrap this up, I want to give you back your day. You've been
Yeah.
amazing. Two new Shinedown songs, big
Hmm.
tour on the horizon. I imagine, as
Yep.
always, a few new songs usually means there's a record coming, as you know.
Yep.
You know what? how we, what's on the horizon? Can you fit in this new album and promoting it, and maybe, even performing some of it alongside Shinedown, or do you have to wait for your turn?
I have to juggle everything all the time. Like I'm sitting here today, I was editing some more videos. I got 3 more videos that go with those 2 that are out. I was editing those at the same time. I'm thinking about, man, I need to really to be mixing those Shinedown tracks. You know, we've got probably, I would say, 2/3 of a record written and probably half of a record recorded right now and ready for mix. So that includes those 2 songs that are out now. So we have a little work to do. We have a couple things we need to write. So we're going to be constantly working on the Shinedown record. I'm going to be still promoting this thing and doing this at the same time. As to playing shows and that kind of thing for myself, possibly. Maybe toward the end of the year when the book comes out, when it's time for the graphic novel to drop, I've thought about doing that and maybe enlisting the help of some friends from other bands that people would know to kind of do an all-star performance of the record or something, and doing some touring with that. We'll see. We'll see how that goes. It depends on how exhausted I am at the end of the year. But as I get a little older, I like to work smarter, not harder. But I do think it would be a shame if I didn't do any performances of this record at all. But I'm just happy it exists, man. I want people to love it. I want people to enjoy it, and it will be out on vinyl and CD, and you can go to that stuff's linked off of my Instagram and YouTube page and that sort of thing. And if anyone's interested in buying pre-order for that stuff, so but man, look, I really appreciate the time, and I hope that hopefully I can get out there and see you on the road or something.
Oh, absolutely. I want to see this thing staged. We cover Shinedown a lot. We'll probably cover
Yeah,
the tour that's coming up
yeah,
soon. But yeah, just a pleasure to get to know you and hear this from you right directly from the source. And
yeah.
journalists, we have lizard brains and we have to get spoon-fed everything and come up with scenarios like, what do I think it is? What do I feel it is? Which
Yeah,
is,
well, that's your
which is
job,
good.
right?
That's our job. But
Yeah.
like also like it's so cool to hear from you directly, the source, all these things. I'm just so happy for you. Congratulations on this record. Congrats on
Hey,
the new Shinedown stuff. We'll see you on the
thank you.
road. And thanks for
Awesome,
spending
man.
some time with Ghost Cult today, man. I
Of
appreciate
course, man. I really enjoyed it. Thanks so much for your time. I appreciate it.